Okay, thank you everyone. It's 4 o'clock. I'm gonna officially start our zine club so we don't rush anyone or we all have plenty of time for questions, but feel free. Everyone's just trickling in. We've got featured zine maker Raymundo here, and I'm
Hey,
really
how's it going?
excited. So excited to hear all about your zines and your history with zines. I know you have a long history with zines and art, and want to hear all about it. So thank you for being our guest and take it away.
Awesome. Thank you, first of all, Ziba and the LA Public Library and the Palisades Public Library for hosting the Zine Club conversation. As Ziba mentioned, I've been doing zines. The first zine I did was, I would say, like 89, like I was like 15, 16 years old. And it was a music zine just based on stuff that I liked. Did like 3 copies for a couple friends that worked on it and myself. Um, but I'm going to start with my most recent zine, which is this one. It's a collection of flyers from a DIY space that my parents ran in here in LA in the 80s and 90s. And I'm going to actually go through a PDF of it so you can see some of that work. One of the reasons that I like to share that, like the flyers, it's what the hardcore punk, emo, riot grrrl scenes introduced me to graphic design and to making zines. So it was partially a matter of necessity and also partially because I really like working visually and working with my hands and drawing and all of that. So naturally, I wanted to do zines for events we had. So I'm gonna pop this up. Let's see, give me one sec. It's also share screen. Um, okay, so I'm gonna scroll through these and just let me know if you have any questions. But these are examples. Is it showing first of all?
Yes, we see
Okay,
it
cool,
full screen.
cool. So that's me on the left installing a sort of dedication to the space that my parents ran, where I collected a bunch of photos, flyers, zines, and tools that I used to make zines. That's currently on view at Mount San Antonio College, and it's closing this weekend. I will put a little shout out to them at the end, but that photo is me installing that a couple months ago. Um, on the right is sort of a bio of Macondo, but just to sort of speed things up, my parents started it in LA. They ran a music distribution out of a garage, our garage in Atwater. And they also made these zines that had all the records that they distributed in them. So that gave me sort of the idea of like, hey, I can make these zines too. So here are some of the flyers. Let's see. So the one on the right is my first flyer where I just use the photocopy machine and sticky letters. It's sort of the beginning of the aesthetic that I use in my studio work. So I find that flyer pretty important to me. Um, and the flyer on the left is a flyer by a friend that made one of the first zines I ever saw called Patchwork Fanzine. And that zine was dedicated to hardcore, punk, straight edge metal, like things going on in LA and like the kind of DIY underground scenes. So Patchwork Fanzine has always been a huge influence to me personally, wanting to make zines. Also, always had some very interesting political content and documentation of what was going on musically. This would be in 92. So that flyer's from 92. Let me jump back on here. So these are more flyers. I'll go through a few and then I'll jump into another zine that I've done. Um, as I said, I liked working black and white. Most of these are analog. I didn't have a computer yet, and I don't think many people did in this scene. But you'll see when computers started to kind of jump in the picture, the aesthetic kind of changed, but it led me to a career in graphic design. So appreciate them both. These are all bands that played at Macondo, that later on went to, different levels of acclaim and like music industry acceptance, etc. But it all started from like a very independent underground foundation. Atoxico is an important show to me because it connected the hardcore and punk scenes at Macondo to what was going on in Mexico City. So Atoxico is a group from Mexico City that made their way all the way up here and played at our place. That flyer actually was made by the same person that ran Patchwork Fanzine, which is also a big influence on me. A few more shows. And yeah, so this is something that I've had as a foundation for what I do since then. And, this on the left is hand lettered, excuse me for the profanity in punk. And then the right side is Bikini Kill's first show in Los Angeles. So I have a lot of zines from that era. So I have a lot of the earlier Riot Grrrl zines, etc. And some of those are on view at Mount San Antonio College currently. On the left, and I'll close with that one because it'll introduce the graffiti part of my zine practice. This flyer was done by a hardcore band called Downset, formerly called Social Justice. And through this scene, I got to meet a lot of graffiti writers, and that's what kind of connected punk, the underground, and graffiti in my practice. So it's also a very important flyer and a very important event in my development. Let me exit. So that's a little sneak preview of that zine. It's actually going to be launched at the closing at Mount San Antonio College, which is this Saturday, the 18th. And I'll put a little more info on that after the end of this. So let me jump into, as I mentioned, graffiti is also a big part of my practice, and the zine that I've done that's gotten the most acclaim and most recognition is a zine called Lost. And I started that zine after reading an article in another zine that a friend of mine named Tempt used to do. And in that zine, he mentioned that there was a whole world of zines focused on graffiti in different parts of the world, the US specifically, but also around the world. And so I figured like, hey, I can do a zine and I can dedicate it to graffiti since I was involved in that scene as well. So physically, this is that first issue of that zine, black and white, Xerox. My mom helped me out a lot, actually printed at her office. So yeah, like focusing on LA stuff, and I'm gonna go into a PDF of this. And stop me if I'm like going too fast or if you have any questions.
Well, I have a quick question. What
Yeah.
happened to that music venue after it was no longer? Did it go by a different name? Did someone else take over? Because I used to go to a music venue off Melrose, but maybe it's a totally different one, but it was off Melrose and Heliotrope.
Yeah, that was our space. It must, well, yeah, it must. So our space was on Melrose and Heliotrope. We were next door to a bigger spot called the Ukrainian Cultural Center. And that space had like a lot of like legendary punk shows from the 80s, but that was before my time. But a lot of bands played there. So our spot kind of continued that tradition of having shows in that area. And there is a space there now that has theater. But the organization still exists as an organization. It's a nonprofit organization, and some of the more recent activities and things that the organization has done has organized exhibitions. For example, the founder of Macondo, one of the founders of Macondo, Paula Ramirez, she just had an exhibition of her photography of the Zapatista movement. And those photos were first shown at Macondo during the run of all these punk shows that I just showed. So there's you know, it's been an organization doing things. We're not doing hardcore shows anymore, but it's still active from time to time. We put stuff on. And we closed due to a lot of factors. I think it's tiring running a space, frankly. There's a lot of work put into it, especially when it's all volunteer run. Also, like the music that we were doing started to get a lot of like mainstream corporate attention, and there was that was something I personally was not prepared for. And also like a lot of these bands exploded, so our space was just logistically way too small to do that kind of stuff. Did I get your question? All right, so here goes the first like more serious scene that I did, and it's called Lost Graffiti in the City of Angels. So that's a cover. That's a painting I did in the LA River, down the street from where I grew. Oh, wait, am I not? Sorry. I forgot to share my screen. Okay, so this that's the cover of the zine. It's a painting I did in the LA River, and some of the highlights of this issue are a walk I took downtown. That I took in downtown Los Angeles. So as you can see, a lot of this is when I first started to have access to a camera, and I was able to run a lot of photos that I took downtown. This story is just one day of walking around downtown LA. I'll read a little bit of it and then I'll jump. It starts, lost in the streets of downtown Los Angeles, you can't avoid the scents that fill the air. A duck slaughterhouse sends fumes as well as feathers drifting. The biological needs of the body are scattered everywhere, filling your nostrils with the smell of an urban toilet. Factories ooze green minty sludge onto the sidewalk, a sick cologne for the concrete we walk on. Amidst the fumes, aerosol enamel has no doubt added to this environment. However noxious spray paint may be, the walls of our crumbling city are adorned by graffiti, making this enormous urban chaos come alive. So that's more or less the concept that ran through all these issues of my zine, you know, just sort of it's the engagement of graffiti and art in public space with the city that we inhabit. And in the late 90s and early 2000s, graffiti was super criminalized, and yet it existed everywhere, and it gave us all like some arts education, especially me. It's one of the ways that I engaged with art, art in public space, the meaning of art, why do you do art? Like all those questions would come to mind when I would do these walks, write down these ideas, take photos. Let me get on the chat. Okay, cool. So this is a tribute to a graffiti writer that passed away. And unfortunately, that also became sort of a theme through issues of Lost. You know, trying to pay tribute to the visual work that they did in the city. Seeking Heaven crew is a crew that I'm a member of. And the day I got into grad school was the same day I got into this graffiti crew. So it's also been parallel to my like arts education and my arts practice. These are some works, one in the LA River and two along the train tracks of Commerce. So it's a lot about public space, and a lot of my current practice deals with that kind of contrast of visual work in public space. All work that has influenced me and people that were active in Los Angeles at the time and still are. One of the things I try to do as well in that connection of that I got from hardcore and punk and also from graffiti is that we are interconnected through all this artistic output, whether it be music, whether it be visual work, etc. So I had a section that as me being lost in a city. So in this case, it's Lost in New York, and it's graffiti I saw when I was there, approaching it the same way, walking around, etc. Next issue, when I did issue 1, I had the idea of doing 10 issues, and I made it to 13. So I closed it out at 10 years. So this is my closing spread. So I'm going to jump into next what became of that zine, Lost. Let me. Okay, so after working in black and white, I decided it's time to do a compilation. So this is a compilation of a bunch of the issues, full color. And why that's sort of important to me is that after I started getting into this format of full color zine making, there wasn't necessarily pushback, but there definitely was feedback as to like, hey, that's more like a book. And I mean, kind of, but it's still approached the same way. The only thing that I thought was where I was going bookish was the ISBN number. It was also the largest run. So it's 2,000 copies of the zine. And it is the one that's at the Getty Research Institute, the Letterform Archive, and also those are the 2 physical archives it's in currently. And this is my section where you might recognize that cover from the first issue, some spreads. Also, like really, I was doing this while I was in school, really developing my graphic design skills and techniques and sensibility. Black and white, and then segued into color. Still the same idea, but I can see where it started to not feel like the Xerox or the photocopied scenes that I grew up with. And so all these are examples from the 13 issues run of Lost, engaging with the city, met these kids painting, and so they became stars in my magazine. And I'm going to close it out at this section, which is the artist that I was talking about that I did the tribute to in my first zine. And I thought it'd be important to just show the work again and show it at a larger scale and in color. A little more of his work. Influential work to me as a kid. That this crew I saw growing up in my neighborhood in Echo Park. And it made me want to start painting graffiti. So that's one of the things that I feel like I've always tried to do is sort of pay tribute and recognize the things that have influenced me in my zines. So visually, that's why I've selected a lot of these artists, because they've had a big impact on my development. So this issue came out in 2008, and that closed out 10 years from the first black and white one, which was 1998. And it's centered on Los Angeles writers, Los Angeles graffiti artists. And I'm going to stop at this page, this spread, and jump into a zine that this artist and I worked on together. His name is Temp, or is Temp One. He passed away very recently, hugely influential worldwide in graffiti. And he is who introduced me to the idea of making a zine about graffiti. So collaborating with him connected all these things in my head. So the next zine I'm going to show is this one. So this zine It's called Temptique, and it's dedicated to, actually, it was done by Tempt and I, as part of a Kickstarter campaign. The Kickstarter campaign was to fund an eye tracking software for him to be able to draw again. He unfortunately was diagnosed with ALS and was unable to move, but he still had all this creativity, all this work that he wanted to get done. So we decided to get the zine done, and it was also given away. That's him painting. It was given away as a premium for the Kickstarter. And it's also, for me, it was like a nice return to like a black and white format and just seeing what I could pull off, you know, different color paper. I got some silver spray paint on there that you might be able to see. So let me jump into that one a little bit. Oops. Sorry. Here we go. Oh, here we go. Okay, so when I was working on the zine, it was logistically tempting. I had to figure out how he can sort of art direct and collaborate without being able to move. We ended up doing it via his caretaker, transcribing emails to me and messages to me and back and forth. So it was very much a collaboration, and it was very much also in a virtual space, which was, for me, it's an interesting way to work. And it also reminds me of what we ended up with during the pandemic, where the way we were communicating is the same way we're doing this now. So here, it's all about his work, with essays written by different people in the community. You know, this is his thoughts on writing, all written with eye communication through his caretaker, transcribed to emails. So it was a long process, but it was also very, very meaningful to me. Still being able to communicate and work on things with him. So a lot of his approach to graffiti directly fed what I did in my zine. You know, like, for example, the quote, "For them, art is survival, and that determination to do art under the harshest circumstances, heartfelt." And that represented to me like the approach to making art. This is more of his sketchbook work, which is also very rarely seen in a graffiti context, unless you're kind of part of the scene itself. It very punk rock as well. It's very him again. So this zine, actually, I revisited it recently since he passed away. And it motivated me to do a sketchbook zine, which is what I'm going to share next. So one of the you are Ike. Wait, sorry, I missed this comment. You are Ike. Not sure what that means, but my graffiti name is I1, and the Ike just kind of means like and what. So it's Tempt was stating his name, like my name is Tempt and what, like, so that is my name. It's a very there's a long tradition of that affirmation in writing on walls, where it's kind of like, I am here, and what, you're not going to be able to erase me, which is something that he demonstrated his entire life being able to work completely paralyzed. Okay, so I am going to. So from that zine, I was like, I need to do more drawing for one, and also practice on my lettering and my sketching. And I did this zine, trying to emulate one of my sketchbooks. So, you know, black pages, stickers everywhere. And one of the things I did was not print on the back page. So you can color in these drawings if you wanted to, like a regular sketchbook. And here goes. So this is also one of my most recent zines. It's directly, it just comes from my sketchbook, just black and white pages, wanting to recapture that same feeling of my earlier zine. So I asked my dad for his typewriter. I typeset most of it on his typewriter, and then also with a font that I designed, which is what you would, you know, the display typeface is one of my designs. So this character that you see on most of these pages is what I'm most recognized for in the graffiti world. And they're based on the Zapatistas from Chiapas, Mexico. I designed a set of characters for them that they started to use and remix, and they ended up spreading all over the world in support of their movement and other movements. So I still like to draw them when when I'm sketching and practicing my stuff. All this series of drawings also came about during the pandemic, which is interesting in that it connected my crew and my friends through graffiti and through like all these virtual formats to be able to continue to draw. And so what we would do is draw each other's names. So all these names are not mine. They're people that whose work I look up to, who I'm friends with, in my style. And this zine also marks the beginning of a thing a friend of mine and I jokingly call Zine Club, like Z-I-N. So I was stoked when I was invited to be part of Zine Club, because I've been doing that concept for a minute. So yeah, those are all drawings, kind of wanting to get back to that practice of putting stuff on paper with ink, and then always thinking of making zines from whatever I'm working on. Okay, I somehow got rid of the chat. There you go. So yeah, that same feeling of wanting to work in an analog format again led to another recent zine. And I think this is the one I'm gonna like formally close with, and then we can ask questions. I'm gonna do a few little announcements, etc. But all like hand stuff, hand lettered, letter set, sticky letters, typewriter. Just seeing what I could still do without relying heavily on my computer. And I'm gonna launch that one. Okay, so if you've done photocopying, you probably know this trick. Like you place something or you can do it with a scanner as well. Just move whatever you're trying to scan or copy, and you get some interesting results. I was also trying to reintroduce a bunch of messages I know a lot of my zine work is just images, but I wanted to be a little more text based on this one. Just a lot of stuff were found office supplies, you know, trying to see what I can get out of like beat up type, that kind of thing. Very, very much in line with like the zines that I grew up with seeing and trying to collect and find. This drought tolerant piece became like a sculpture that I made for my latest solo exhibition, where I worked with cacti, bricks, just as a symbol of being able to resist a bunch of adversity and still being able to thrive. It's probably no mystery. A lot of my work has a Marxist framework behind it. So trying to combine that into the visual work is always something I'm interested in, and I'm always trying to figure out how I can effectively get to that. So a lot of these messages that's where they're coming from like Marxist theory, a lot of like thoughts from the Zapatistas, like there's my list of materials that I used. So I typed that out with my dad's typewriter and just a bunch of stuff that I grew up with. Found that photo of a computer from back in the day where I just like the contrast of, hey, like we used to need to have access to something like that to be able to produce publications, but not with zines. So during, yeah, thinking about global warming, and our world is literally burning during the fires that that's where this image came from. So part of the Zine Club concept is that these zines now I'm basically distributing to friends if someone sees me and asks, like, and I have one, that's how I distribute them. Like it's I kind of distance myself from trying to commerce with these zines, especially when I'm basically producing them either at cost or for nothing. So I used to work at a print shop that instead of paying me what I had asked for, offered me printing like free range of use of all their equipment. So that's how I was able to get a lot of these done and not need to sell them. So I can just, give them away, trade them. And that's an ad for my next one. Let's see. Cool. So that's sort of the formal part of what I wanted to present. If there are questions, I'll like take questions, and I can keep on going if you want. I have a couple other things to share, but I want to end on those. So if there are not, if there's anything I can answer or talk about, here I am.
Can you duck your head down a little bit so we can see behind you the
Yeah.
artwork? Cool, thank you.
So these pieces are from my most recent solo exhibition, and they're referencing a lot of the aesthetic that I showed in my scenes. I still work in that format, like the black and white. Like I use a lot of toner, and also like spray paint, graffiti, that kind of thing. That's all incorporated to what I do. The clay figures here based on my Zapatista characters were done by my sister, who works in clay a lot, and that's her work right there. Let's see. So one of the things that's interesting to me with zine making is now that we are and I mean, this talk is a perfect example. Now that we're in this digital virtual space, how do you translate like the feeling that you're, or at least me, the feeling I'm trying to convey with my, with my hard copy, physical paper, ink stuff, in a way that can be shared, even if you can't get a copy of one of these zines. So at this last exhibition, what I did is I revisited the imagery from the 10-year span of my zine and made a video installation of it. So if there are no questions, I'm gonna run it, if that's okay.
Hernández Martínez se volvió a levantar, dice que se desayunó, se fue a trabajar. Cuando llegó al lugar, le pidió a su patrón que le aumentara el jornal. El patrón se le negó. Las cosas andan muy mal. Hernández Martínez, aumentaré tu jornal. Si me señalas muy bien, si me señalas muy bien, ¿quién te va a colocar? Si me señalas muy bien, ¿quién te va a colocar? Hernández Martínez se volvió a levantar, dice que se desayunó y se fue a trabajar. Cuando llegó a se encontró a Juvenal, un hombre, era un hombre muy cabal. Hernández Martínez te invitaba a Juvenal. Únete al movimiento, la huelga ya va a empezar. Únete al movimiento, la huelga ya va a empezar. Hernández Martínez replicó a Juvenal: la huelga no deja nada, la huelga no deja nada. Siempre que llego a mi casa encuentro bocas que llenar. Siempre que llego a mi casa encuentro bocas que llenar. Cuando podrás entender.
Okay, so all those images came from, like I said, my 10-year run of zines, my lost zine. And I was trying to figure out a way to kind of make a page turning analogy in video format, but without making it directly like something is flipping. And also wanted to convey the type of stories that I've been telling in my zines. So I paired it with a song by a friend of my family's and mine named Lon Chavez Texeiro. And he's also telling a story about two workers and the way they approach their life and the way they approach organizing and fighting for, for a better life. So I liked pairing that with all the images of graffiti and of the city, because I feel like that's a mindset that I was in when I was creating the zines. So yeah, I think there's still a lot of space to explore in how do you capture like a physical object and make it available without actually needing the physical object. Like, how do you get that feeling across? And a lot of my zines are very like image heavy, and I haven't really written as much as I used to in my earlier zines. That's the goal, is to be able to tell those stories visually with what I've been capturing. So I'm just catching up with the chat, and I just want to say thank you to everyone who's I'll drop a big heart for everybody. And yeah, so I have a couple of little shout outs if I should just keep going. Cool. So this is like the semi-ad portion of the chat, but also want to share some resources. Wait a minute. Okay, so the first thing I want to highlight is the work of the People's Graphic Design Archive. I found it, and they contacted me simultaneously over the pandemic. And as you can see up top, they have a pretty cool mission. You can sign up and start posting zines, graphic design, etc. Let me see what I find for me. So that's what comes up when I look for myself, which is very weird. But as you can see, there's like examples of my zines and my flyers. And if you want to dive further into what they have and type in zines, you'll see a great collection of stuff that's it spans decades and very interesting, cool stuff. So that's like first shouty is People's Graphic Design Archive. I would recommend checking them out. Second shouty would be to the Letterform Archive, specifically Kel Trofton, for building an amazing graffiti zine collection. They're based out of San Francisco, but it's worth going up there, and it's also worth asking to see their graffiti zine archive. Shouty Kel for building that for them and just having some amazing stuff. So that's let me go to their homepage. So that's them. They have an amazing collection of print stuff, typography, design, and Kel gave us an amazing tour of their graffiti zine collection. So shouty to them. The next announcement is, I mentioned the Mount San Antonio College Gallery a few times. They have an exhibit on music currently. And I did an installation of flyers, zines that I referenced earlier. They're having a closing this Saturday, May 18th. So if you want to see like my selections from my collection of zines and ephemera, it's worth it, in my opinion, for that. But I was really stoked on seeing the archives of a magazine called No Magazine that documented a lot of 70s, 80s new wave punk stuff that informed what I do. And then just the two ego shout outs. That's my Instagram, where I like try to update daily or as much as I can with stuff going on. And that's where you can see more of my studio work. But if I do zine drops, they'll be on there like this one. And the last one is my website where it's more about my studio practice. That's the piece that Siba asked about. And you can see how my zine work informs my studio practice. And that's that. Let me share one more. No, I think I'll leave it there. But yeah, I was a little bit fast, so we got 15 minutes that we can chat or we can call it Ziba. It's up to you.
Oh no, that was very inspiring, very motivational. No, we have tons of questions, I'm sure. So feel free, everyone, ask your questions in the chat or out loud. But I love how you started with the music flyers from the music venue that created your start in the early 90s to graphic design, to art, to zines. I feel like that's a natural progression for a lot of people. Maybe they didn't have a music venue to create flyers for, but if they had like high school bands and they were creating flyers for their own band, it's like artwork. I love that. It leads to zines, I mean.
Yeah, I think the sort of like the big picture takeaway for me is like, as you can see in like the music stuff and the graffiti stuff, is things that you are passionate about and that you are dedicating a lot of time to naturally lend themselves to zine making. And I remember the first zine I ever made that I didn't show, a friend of mine that worked on it, he was learning magic. So he did a magic column, so there's, if you don't have a music venue, but you skateboard or you like riding your bike or you like food or any of that, that's what's amazing. And that's what I think introduced me to that concept of, hey, like if you put it down on a sheet of paper, it's a zine. And also like on the aesthetic side, I definitely learned a lot from that scene, like the high contrast stuff, the texture stuff, the working with what's like what's available, what you can find, envelopes, sticky letters, markers, any of that stuff can build a zine and help you make them. And also, as in my case, it can feed directly into my studio practice.
And you said there's a collection of graffiti zines in San Francisco, or
Yeah,
is it
so the Letterform Archive, they're based in San Francisco. And the way I connected with them is I went to that event that I showed. Let me show it again. So yeah, so Subscription to Mischief was an exhibition of graffiti zines from the 90s. And I was pleasantly surprised they had a few of zines that I did, some that I didn't even think existed out there anymore. So so it was really cool to see that something I did back in 98 is now in a housed with a bunch of other really significant objects in design and in print. And I can't find myself. Where am I? Let me, I'm going to drop these links in the chat if people want to check them out.
and this comment, what a beautiful tribute to friends of all abilities, disability rights, workers' rights, and call for a better world. Yes, I agree. Thank you, Villalobos.
Thank you.
And that, yeah, brought a question. You said that Tempt had ASL and they had a software to use the eyes? Or how
Yeah,
did that work?
So Temp was diagnosed with ALS, which
Oh,
is more commonly known as Lou Gehrig's disease. And it's a progressive degeneration of your muscles. So it gets to the point where even the muscles in your eyes can't function anymore. And that's working with Temp on that zine was bittersweet because it forced him to use his eye muscles a lot to be able to look at letters in order for his caretaker to be able to transcribe them into like those essays that I showed. So, but Temp was all for it. He wanted to get down as much of his thinking as he could. He basically he like fought the disease for 20 years and was still able to be creative, still able to be to produce and connect. And so I feel like when there's people that have like contributed to your development, like it's an honor. It was an honor for me to be able to work with him, and anything that I could do to showcase his work, whether it be a zine, whether it be on a mural, I was really honored to be able to do that. That's another thing where like thinking about disability rights, like zines are like traditional zines are tangible things that you need to look at and hold it, or that you look at hold in your hands. And if you're not able to do that, how do you engage with this world, with this, with this creative output, you know? And so the video that I did was an attempt at trying to address those questions, but I think there's still a lot of space to figure out how does this medium become accessible more.
and I see a question in the chat from John. On your graffiti photo walks, how did you decide what to photograph, documenting specific writers, friends, or just whatever caught your eye?
In all honesty, it's probably all of the above. There's a heavy lean, and that's also some feedback that I think everyone that does a graffiti zine, and probably any kind of zine that focuses on like a specific category or activity, is like, why is this person in it and not that person? But for me, I saw the names of people I recognized and I wanted to document them. And there's people that I documented that I didn't know, but I did recognize them from having worked in the streets. And then third, friends like Temp, people that contributed greatly to the graffiti scene in this case, that were also colleagues and friends that I felt needed representation. So it's a little bit of everything, but one of the ideas behind like the Lost in New York one, and I did a Lost in the Bay Area, Lost in DC, Lost in Mexico City, was actually just going by whatever caught my eye. The way, like the way John put it, it was like, I'm in DC, I really don't know anybody, I'm gonna walk around and what catches my eye, and that's what made it in the zines. So I dropped People's Graphic Design Archive, Letterform Archive, and the Mount SAC links in the chat. And I'm gonna pop this. Yeah, so I got that. Let me share one more image.
Hey, Raymundo, just before we get started, I see your pronouns are he, him. Is it all right if I just refer to you as he, him throughout the meeting, if possible, just to make me feel a bit more comfortable?
Yeah, no problem.
I appreciate that, man.
For sure. So that's a little sneak peek of my installation out Mount San Antonio College. You can see some of the zines on the wall. Riot Girl zine, K Record catalog. There's a Downset zine. Some of the catalogs my parents did for their music distribution are on there, which are in the format of a letter size zine folded in half. There's examples of patchwork fanzine for that inspired me. So yes, Shatia.
Hi, how are you?
Good, thank you.
I was wanted to follow up and ask you about something you had said. You said that you were trying to make zines a little less flippy, and I might have missed the first portion of the meeting today because I wasn't able to log on right at 4. But so I was wondering if you could talk more about that. If you could talk a bit about what you mean by you were trying to make the zines a little less flippy.
So in my case, I was trying to address a way to showcase the content of a 10 years worth of zine making in video format, but without going with a direct analogy of a page flipping. I know there's animation transitions where you can pop in a zine and it'll look like you're actually turning a page on screen, but you're not really turning a page. It's like, I think I might even have an example. How are we on time, Ziba?
Go for it. Yeah, we got 4 minutes.
Let me see if it'll play. And this will be sort of what I mean when I say like flippy.
Oh.
Do you know what let me it might take me a second. That'll actually be a good place where we can leave it, I think, because it's my most recent zine. Let me. Yeah, sorry about I wasn't planning on showing this, but I will. All right, I think I figured out how to do this. Yeah. So can you guys see that?
Yes.
That's what I mean by flippy. So that is
Can you talk a little bit about your format, the format of the zine, and how it compares to just maybe some other ideas of what a zine looks like? I feel
Yeah.
like your publication, which I thought looks very beautiful, I felt like it looked more like a like say like a magazine or something like that. Is that usual? Is that also a traditional format for a zine?
So let me That's a great question. And I alluded to it earlier in that some of the I wouldn't classify it as pushback because it wasn't negative, but feedback I got was definitely like this is not a zine from a very well-renowned fine artist that started in graffiti. I gave him a copy on behalf of Tempt actually, and he was like, man, that's not a zine, that's a book. The thing that I mentioned about working at a print shop allowed me to do this type of stuff, where it was like taking the means of production at your that are available to you and seeing how far you could push it. So the covers are silk screened. This is just like perforated and wire bound. You could get one of those machines. They're like office supplies type stuff. But yeah, like definitely people are like, oh, that's a book. There's like not a zine. But I still do this, letter size paper folded in half, black and white, like old school zine. And actually it's letter size folded in half because I don't have access to a tabloid photocopier. So this is like the traditional zine I got used to. But like this is also, black and white, just paper folded the long way. So one of my parting thoughts in making zines is get familiar with what paper does. And also don't be stuck to like standard paper sizes. You can always cut paper. That's one of the amazing things about it. So let's see if I can find it. So here's a zine that I did walking around Mexico City, and it's actually color copy, but it's on regular paper, just cut a different way. I don't know if you guys can see that. So formatting, I'm all for formatting however you want, and like it's fun. Like I like messing with paper. Did I answer the question?
Thank you so much. When I saw it, because I get the monthly. Thank you for the monthly emails, and that they with your bio, it shows your bio there, and so I was really excited to hear about your perspective. Being from Mexico City, and just reading some of like your background and the kind of work that your topics, your themes. So yes, so I was really to get a little bit more insight on zines themselves as well as the themes you're exploring. I'm really happy I was able to join. Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you all. That concludes our hour. I'm glad for those that were able to make it at any point. And thanks for all your information. I learned a lot about you today, Raymundo, aka I1, and we'll be keeping an eye out for the graffiti and thinking of you. And we'll have this up later for a wider audience. And yes, great talk. We had over 15 participants today. That's a good number for us. And thank you for your time.
Thank you for inviting me. Really appreciated it. Okay.
Thank you all. Have a good day.
Bye.
Bye.